Well, Sue's story is linked with theatre. We're doing this under the Real People Theatre's auspices. And just to let you know that the theatre has been part of my life since wherever. And at 5 years old, I was in a play and it was the Raggle Taggle Gypsies. And I was the queen. And I had to say, "My golden crown I will lay down and be no more a queen." And then I went off with the Raggle Taggle Gypsies. So that was from 5 years old. My mum and dad met in amateur theatre rehearsals, and I was probably conceived in the middle of, Shakespeare or something or some. Anyway, so theatre has always been part of my life. When we came back from Canada, we came to York, and we started the Real People Theatre Company. And the first thing we did there was immediate family. And I just want to mention I did a monologue, and it was, I was acting, and it was a monologue, and it was by myself. And I was talking to this empty bed where my partner was lying in imagination in a coma. And I've been visiting her every day. I was a post lady, and I visited my partner every day in hospital, and she was being kept alive by this. We had a heartbeat going through the whole show, being kept alive by this ventilator. And because I was only her friend and was not her immediate family related by blood, I had no say whatsoever in how she was treated, or when I felt that she would really want to be turned off. And I went to all her relatives, and they all said either, it's God's will, or it's the hospital, the doctors know what they're doing, or don't talk to me, I hate her anyway, from her estranged relatives. And I couldn't find anybody to talk to from her immediate family that would enable her to be turned off. And in the end, don't tell anybody, but I sneaked round and I turned the ventilator off. And then we played the music to Beaches. She was the wind beneath my wings, and it was all very sad. And anyway, but that was a story that really hit home to me. So when the chance to become civil partners with all the legal rights of marriage and everything else came up in 2003 in York, Anne and I had our civil partnership in 2003 as part of a pilot project. And we were probably the first older couple to get partnered in York. And then when it really came in 2005 and you could legally have a civil partnership, we did it immediately because we'd experienced what it was like not to be the first person to be called on if anything happened to either of us. So that's where that inspiration came from. And then we were Paper Bag People. Let me just tell me about another couple of shows. Paper Bag People. There we were in Vancouver in the middle of a huge pride procession with balloons and rainbows and the dykes on bikes with bare chests on motorbikes leading the cavalcade, and trans people and the mayor and the gay guys were playing a water polo in the middle of one of the trucks. And it was an absolute. On the other side of the road was standing a little lady with a brown paper bag on her head. And on the brown paper bag, it said, I'm 60 years old. When will it be safe for me to come out? And that stayed in my mind for about 30 years until I had the Real People Theatre Company going. And we did paper bag people, because there are people who are going around with paper bags over their heads because they've got a hidden disability, or they have domestic violence, or they have mental health problems, or they're a lesbian, LGBT, or whatever, or people. I wanted to stop people having to wear paper bags over their heads and to feel safe in our communities and feel safe to share things that and they could take their paper bags off. And we've been doing that paper bag show as part of Free to Be Me, and going into care homes and saying, do have the courage, do have the trust to be able to be free to be who you are. So that paper bag person has reflected in our shows and in my life. And then the last two things are Dementia Me. And we had Julie's, anyway, we had friends, and the way the father looked after the mother through thick and thin when she had dementia, and the way we've also got Jeff and his wife, and the way they look after their wife when she had dementia is truly, truly inspiring. So that when I came to do Dementia and Me as part of Real People Theatre, we had 3 scenes on diagnosis, reality slippage, and being out of touch at the end. And Sarah was and Anne were the two, the mother and the daughter in that. And we did it for all kinds of we did it all over the blooming place. Where did we do it? We did it all over to chemists and care homes and councils and bar convent, all over the jolly place. And it's the fact that somebody you've seen people coping with and experiencing dementia, and you translate it into theatre, and that's the inspiration for you to then hopefully sow the seeds of inspiration from what you're doing in theatre. And the last one I want to mention is No Kidding, which was about AWOCs, Aging Without Children. And I'll talk about that more when we're doing our AWOC thing. But again, it's the fact that you are an AWOC and you know a load of people aging without children that inspires me to do something theatrical. And what I'll just finish with there is to say it's like a river. You have a source of this river, and this river is your life and your inspirations as they go through. And then you go and you do your shows or your workshops, and then it goes into the sea. And then the inspiration spreads to whoever has heard you or watched you or been with you through the workshops and through the shows. And that actually means a lot to me. Sowing the seeds and spreading the inspiration. So I'm very glad we've done this inspiring workshop.
there's many sources of inspiration for me, but I had inspiration when I heard about the return of the Jews to York after the 1190 massacre. Of course, as my father was Jewish, I am involved in Jewish history. And the reason that's an inspiration is because I suddenly switched from having most of my life regarded victims of genocide as, well, of people who suffered from genocide as victims, to the people who survived and managed to build up a life again as resilience. So I suddenly stopped thinking about, in my case, it was Jewish people in York, but of course that could apply to all sorts of people who've been oppressed and have been oppressed. Not then, of course, they are victims in a way, but what it's inspiring to think that human beings can bounce back and be resilient. And that's what it inspired me.
Hi, my name is Wajiha. I am from Syria. I am 35 years and not married. I studied a master Greg and French language. Yes,
French language.
language. Oh, sorry. I volunteered in Syria an association. Yeah, association. Okay. And I love and handicraft. And I make them with all my love.
She makes it with love.
Yeah.
That's craft.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
I was alone for I will and studied and worked and I was different from a Timor. Sorry.
I was alone for a while, and
Yeah.
I studied and worked, and I was suffering from a tumor, and all of this did not stop me.
Yeah.
I was strong and resilient to face all of life's challenges. Now I have a tumor in my left breast. I will be doing the appropriate tests for treatment now in York. Do you want to speak some more? Shall we tell our story? I lived without a family for 10 years in Syria. Oh. We are very glad you're here. We're very glad you're here. Keep courageous and keep courageous because you are very valuable person. And great value.
Thank you very much.
We're just going to record this.
So this is basically the henna tattoo, just like how you guys have tattoo done. The henna can be put on your hand, your shoulder. I've done the lower back. I've done people's upper hand, the arm. So this is, I do it as a sideline. I used to do it when I was back home as a sideline business, and I used to earn extra bucks from it. It's really nice because you get to change the pattern and you get to change where you want to have it. And it stays like 3 to 4 days dark, and then it starts getting lighter and eventually it comes off. It's totally natural. So there's no irritation to the skin as such. And it looks very nice, of course.
Stories may be a little bit different from some of the stories we've been hearing. I did say earlier that I just look for inspiration everywhere I go. And as a child, the place I found it was in books. We heard about Pookie earlier. Pookie and the Gypsies was my first school prize in 1950, age 5, for good work. So I just love books and images and ideas. 2 years later, the real inspiration came when I received Anne of Green Gables as a Christmas present. And I fell in love with Anne. She had red hair. She was a rebel. She was inspirational. She wrote and spoke beautifully. Her language, her imagination was astonishing. And my mum had red hair. So I made this kind of identity. I was too young to realize what a hero my mum was, but I kind of got to it through Anne. So she was the first book hero for me. In my village, we had no theatres, no museums, not even a cinema. So it was always books for me and the local library. At the moment, I continue to look for inspiration in the arts. I'm presently reading, because I'm besotted with crime novels, a book about a transgender cop in New Jersey, very successful, working with a black sidekick. And they fight prejudice and crime and create mayhem and joy wherever they go. So I think through literature, you can find out all sorts of things. I recently went to the West End Theatre to see Gareth Southgate in Dear England. Don't know if people know about this, but it was his inspiration to the English Football Club. This is a very male story, but it was a male who actually deconstructed maleness and got them thinking with their more feminine side. And actually took them to quite major successes. So for me, success and inspiration through the arts matters. But going back to my mum, brought up in Manchester, forced to leave school at 14 in 1934 because granddad was out of work, family in poverty. They moved, she was a grammar school girl, very bright, very ambitious, but couldn't realise her ambition. 39, they'd moved south because granddad was working in war industries in Slough, and mum became a comptometer operator and toured the country installing efficiency systems, probably not quite like Elon Musk, but she was putting efficiency systems into war industries. So she'd go to factories where they were building munitions or whatever. But she ended up in a village in Herefordshire at one time where Schweppes, people remember Schweppes producing water for the war effort in North Africa. So again, they had to be made more efficient. And a guy in the village said to a chap called Jack, "We've got this fantastic redhead staying at my mum's. Do you want to come and meet her?" And the rest was history and me. So mum married in 43, and in 45, I was born. In 47, she moved from the city to Herefordshire and lived in a house. And maybe your mum had similar experiences. It had no kitchen, no running water, no lavatory, and my nanny kept chickens. My mother had never been near a chicken in her life. And she had a child in arms. So I think she was quite heroic. She found her way to opening a village library, and she brought literature into the village that had not been there before. They used to get the city Herefordshire County Library come around with a fairly miserable little truck and swap a couple of hundred books for a couple of hundred books to refresh. My mother decided she could do better than that, and she got books from Foyles in London. So she got all the latest books she had brought down and then sent back on the train. So this woman, her own ambition to be a teacher had to be kind of subdued, but she inspired me and my brother to go on into grammar school, into university, into interesting ways with our families. So for me, the arts and my mum, that's my story.
Okay, so I am a very how to say very excited join the workshop, and for me I think the inspirations the people is my grandmother and my mother, and because like some women said, and my grandmother also a single mother when she was around 40 years old, and my grandfather was died because of the lung ills, and my grandmother bring up all her 5 children alone, and yeah, and most of the children and become the government staff in a very poor situation. So I think the my grandmother is very inspire me. Yeah, and she is very brave and very kind person. So for my mother, and my mother is very how to say is also a kind person, but when she was 35 years old and she divorced with my father, so I think it's a how to say, maybe this is a circle circle situation, and because my mother meet a liar, because my father work outside. My father work in the Africa that time, so my mother meet a man, and the man cheat my mother about the money and the some emotions, a lot of things. So when my mother divorced, and she bring up me, yeah, by loan. So I think for me, I saw the women's experience, and I think it's very inspire me, and I think I can do something for my grandmother or my mother and another females. I think this is how to say it's a generation by generation. Yeah, I can love them and love more females. So I think uh this is my story, and to let me inspired. Yeah. So it's a very normal story. Yeah. Thank you.
There's many things over the course of my life, 66 years, I'm counting, that have inspired me. There's been art, literature, poetry, scripture, the natural world, loads of things really. I think at the moment, I like taking pictures of things. I like taking pictures of natural scenery, sunsets, sunrises, animals, nature, seascapes, anywhere really that I prefer the natural environment rather than cityscapes and although they can make nice pictures too. I think sometimes people don't have the time in their lives to be inspired by anything. It's all sort of they're slaves to the clock. and routine, and they don't really have much time to actually admire a sunset or a sunrise. I think the most universal thing that can inspire anybody, I think, is the universe. You know, it's literally universal. Anybody can look up at the stars at night, you know, providing it's not cloudy, from anywhere in the world, and they can gather some inspiration from it. And I think whether they're atheists or agnostics or religious people, you can still admire the beauty in it. You can think, oh, it's nature, or you can think it's all part of God's creation, that you know, God created the universe and it's there for everybody to see. It can be a number of things that can inspire people, you know, sort of the heavens are declaring the glory of God. You know, you could say that, or you could say, if you don't believe in God, you can say, well, it's all nature in a glory, you know, but it's still there for everybody to be inspired by. And I think that's something that people don't, you know, you know, when you say, oh, there's it's a lovely clear night tonight, go and look at the stars, and they look at you as if you know, are you from another planet or something, you know, but just because you know, you want to admire the whatever's there, you know. And I think it makes you feel, in some ways you feel part of the universe, but although quite a small part. And I think it puts things in perspective. You know, if you're interested in astronomy, that can inspire you, because it inspired me from when I was quite young. And I remember getting a little book called Patrick Moore's the Observer's Book of Astronomy. I remember it's a little blue book. I think I've actually given it to my son, and he was inspired with astronomy as well. And I just think, you know, that's a nice thing to do, you know, that to have an interest in. And I think now you can actually get these star tracker things. You can get on your phone. You can get an app, and then when it's dark, and you can go out at night and put your phone on. And if you don't know all the constellations, then it will tell you, you know, so you can find out of where you are in the universe, where you are in this big whatever, whether you think the universe is a big gas explosion or whether it was created by God, you know, doesn't matter. You can still admire it, you know. So that's what I think is inspiring.